Be seated. All right, let's start.
Please introduce yourself to the jurors, please.
My name is Troy Davis.
And I believe it's actually Dr. Davis, is that correct?
It is. We don't use that a lot, but it is.
Okay. Well, Dr. Davis, are you currently employed?
Yes, I am.
How are you currently employed?
I'm employed with St. Johns County School District as a federal programs director.
Okay. And how long have you been employed in that capacity?
Coming up on 2 years.
You said St. John's, is that what you said?
St. Johns County,
Where is that?
St. Augustine, Florida.
And prior to working at St. John's in that capacity, have you had an occasion to work in education over the years?
Yes, I have.
How long have you worked in the education system?
30 years.
Did you ever work in the education system here in Ocilla, Georgia?
I did.
And how long did you work here in Ocilla?
1991 till 2005.
Are you originally from this area?
I am from Pearson, Georgia.
Pearson. Okay. During the time period in which you worked here, what different jobs what capacities did you work here in the Ocilla school system?
I served as an assistant principal, a principal, director, curriculum director, school superintendent.
Taking you back to 2005 and before, did you have an occasion to meet someone by the name of Tara Grinstead?
Yes.
And how did you know Ms. Grinstead?
She was a teacher in our school district.
And at the time that Ms. Grinstead came to work here, were you superintendent, or do you recall?
I don't recall.
When you left here as superintendent, where did you go to work?
Lowndes County.
Do you recall at the time that she went missing if you were working here or in Lowndes County?
I was in Lowndes County.
Now, in the weeks leading up to Ms. Grinstead going missing, did you ever have cause to worry about her mental health?
Well, I was concerned about Tara. I'm not a mental health expert, but I was concerned about Tara.
Now, I don't want to go into anything Tara said to you, but did there come an occasion in which you had to assist Tara in getting back to her house, or into her house?
Into her house, yes.
And don't tell me what anyone said, but who called you when that incident occurred?
My then wife called me.
And what was her name?
Missy.
Missy. Did you then go to Tara's home or somewhere else?
I actually went to her home. I was driving from Valdosta, and I went to her home from Valdosta.
When you got to Tara's residence, was anyone else there?
There were.
Who else was there?
As I recall, Dina and Larry Harper were there. Joe Fortier was there.
Yes, sir.
And I want to think there may have been one or two other people, but I don't recall.
Now, do you know what the relationship was that Larry and Dina Harper had to Tara?
Their son had previously dated Tara.
To your knowledge, first of all, what was their son's name?
Marcus.
To your knowledge, was Marcus Harper and Tara Grinstead, were they dating at the time this incident occurred?
To my knowledge, no.
And when you arrived at the residence that day, where was Tara?
She was in her car.
In her car?
In her car.
What kind of vehicle was that? You know the color?
It's white, sports car.
Okay. Was she in the driver's seat or the passenger seat?
Passenger seat.
And how did Tara wind up getting into her house that day?
I carried Tara in after trying to talk her into going to the inside.
At that point, how long had you known Tara?
I don't know. I don't recall. I mean,
In addition to having known her through the school system, would it be fair to say you were somewhat of a mentor to Tara?
yes, I would say that.
And had Tara ever visited in your home?
She had.
Now, on that particular day, can you describe for us Tara's demeanor?
She was very upset, very distraught, crying.
And when you took Tara into her house, what did you do with her?
I laid her on the couch, on her couch in her living room.
Well, did anyone else come in the residence with you?
Yes.
Who came in the residence with you?
Joe Portier and Dina Harper did. I can't recall if anybody else did.
How long did you stay at her residence that evening?
Till 2 a.m. that morning, roughly.
Were you the only one there besides Tara?
Joe Portier stayed until probably the last 10 minutes
Yes, sir. Why did you stay at her residence until 2 a.m.?
because I was not sure about Tara at that point, where she wanted to leave and we did not want her to leave.
Okay. Now, jumping forward to the weekend that Tara went missing, did you have an occasion to see Tara the weekend of October 22nd, 23rd, into the 24th?
Whatever the Saturday was,
And where were you when you saw her on Saturday?
at my home.
Who else was there?
At the time that Tara came, Gloria and Stan Mix, Larry and Dina Harper, my children, Missy. I don't recall if anyone else was there at that time.
And what was going on at your house that all those people were there?
Well, it was a University of Georgia football game that afternoon, so we watched Georgia football and we had a cookout or dinner, and she stopped by.
Do you recall about what time it would have been when Tara got to your house?
It's going to be later because she had been working with a beauty pageant, and
Yes, sir.
so I don't recall what time, but it was dark.
It was dark. And do you recall about how long Tara stayed at your residence?
Not more than a couple of hours, maybe. I don't know a specific time.
Do you know if she left before or after the game finished?
Well, that game had already stopped, and we were watching another football game, actually.
Okay. When was the last time you saw Tara?
Just after 11 o'clock p.m.
Okay.
that night.
Where that night?
Yes.
Where was that?
I walked her, we had went inside, and I walked her to her car. I actually walked on the deck, and she walked out to her car.
Did you see her get in her car?
Yes.
Was anyone else in the vehicle when you saw her get in her car?
No.
And I know it's been some time ago, but do you recall what Tara would have been wearing that evening when she was at your house?
I remember something brown.
Okay. Show you what's already been admitted to evidence.
It's getting hidden from me.
Please. Thank you.
This is a copy of State's Exhibit 2. This will be easier. I'm going to show you a copy of State's Exhibit 2. Ask you to take a look at that. And do you recall if that is consistent with what you saw Tara in, or not consistent, or you simply don't recall?
Yes, that's consistent with what I remember.
No, you mentioned there being something brown. I'm going to show you what's been marked as. It's been marked as 3B. Do you believe you've ever seen this particular item before?
No, I don't recall. I don't.
Could this be the coat she was wearing that evening?
Possibly.
But what you're seeing in States 2, you said that is consistent with what she was wearing
It's
at the
what
time?
I consistently, as I recall.
After Tara left your residence that evening, did you go to speak with her again?
I did not.
Did you see what direction she headed when she left your house?
Yes,
Would that have been towards her home or away from her home?
toward her home.
Any cross-examination? Mr. Burchett?
Good afternoon, Mr. Davis. To your knowledge, sir, did Ms. Grinstead have prior difficulties with any of her students?
I don't. As a teacher, you have problems with students. I mean, I don't know specifically behavior issues. Sure, I'm sure she did. I don't know that, but
Yeah, and I'm asking more specifically about students that made her fearful.
she did have an incident one time. Yes, that I recall.
Who were the names of the students that she was fearful of?
And Judge, I'm going to object to this point. He's asking if he has knowledge, and he's not asked where that knowledge came from, and I believe the answer to him is hearsay. So I object to the hearsay.
What's causing this reverberation again? Do y'all know?
I know they worked on it during the lunch quite some time, but I don't know what's causing it.
All right. Well, if you'll just explore the source of it, I'll be fine. If you'll rephrase your question. Thank you.
Sure.
I sustain that objection.
So, did you have specific conversations with Ms. Grinstead about issues she had with her students that caused her to be fearful?
I don't recall having a specific conversation with Tara.
So, the source of your belief that she had been fearful of certain students, did that come from her or someone else?
A mutual friend.
So you had no personal knowledge about any of the specific names of students from Tara?
Not that I recall.
So who was the source, who's the friend that gave you that?
Mr. Portier.
And do you pronounce his name Portier or Portier?
Portier.
And when you spoke with Mr. Portier, following that, to your knowledge, did you reach a belief that Tara Grinstead was most fearful of Anthony Vickers?
Objection, Judge clearly calls for hearsay.
Mr. Portier is probably waiting outside, Judge, and he's available to testify. So
I agree, you can ask him.
Sustain that objection. Thanks.
Did Miss Grinstead, when she left, tell you she was going home to change into jogging pants?
I do not recall her telling me she was changing.
You don't recall that?
No.
And while she was at your house, did she talk to someone on the telephone?
Yes.
And were you close enough to overhear the conversation?
I don't recall the conversation, but it's close enough to hear her talk to someone, yes.
Would seeing a summary of your interview with the GBI refresh your recollection as to what you may have overheard?
And Judge, I'm going to object at this point. It's actually the defense's motion that we not go into the hearsay from Ms. Grinstead. We consented, and that's clearly what's going on right now.
And yes, Judge. Yes, Your Honor. Thank you. Under 803.3, there's a hearsay exception for state of mind or emotion that is conveyed by a declarant who does not testify in court. That's where we're proceeding, Judge.
This is, I understand, the night of the 22nd. Is that right?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay.
Just there's been no foundation that there's anything to do with her state of mind. He's stating that, but in fact, I don't believe that's going to come in under the evidence that there was state of mind.
I'll admit it. I overrule your objection.
Just to clarify again, does that mean that's opening the door to statements that Ms. Grinstead made to people that evening, or just this specifically?
Well, we'll take them one at a time.
Thank
This
you.
one specifically for right now. Thanks.
May I approach, Judge?
Yes.
And I think I got your answer, sir, but would seeing a copy of your GBI interview summary assist you in refreshing your recollection as to what may have been said?
I'm sure it will help. I mean,
May I approach? So if you'll turn to page 6 of 11. And this is towards the bottom. If you want to read to yourself the last 4 lines of the summary and tell me if that refreshes your recollection as to what you overheard.
Yes.
And you can put that down now, sir. So what did you overhear Ms. Grinstead say on the telephone?
What did I hear her say on the telephone? She had a conversation with someone, and at the end she ended the conversation, "I love you."
Thank you, Judge. That's all I have.
Can you redirect this, Art?
Do you have any idea who she was talking to that day?
And she told me it was an old high school friend.
No further questions.
Based on that, Judge, I do have a follow-up.
Okay.
Sir, if you maybe you remember now, having been asked about it, but if you don't, feel free to take a look at that and tell me between pages 6 and 7 whether or not that refreshes your recollection as to who she may have spoken with.
Yes.
Okay. Who was she speaking with?
She said it was someone named Heath.
That's all I have, Your Honor. Thank you.
Any further, Ms. Hart?
No, Your Honor.
All right. If you'll hand me that document you were just looking at, Dr. Davis, thank you for your testimony.